In the 1930s, while America was already reeling from the Great Depression, another disaster struck, one that turned farms into wastelands, families into migrants, and fertile land into dust. It became known as the Dust Bowl. Massive dust storms swept across the Great Plains, blotting out the sun, suffocating livestock, and burying homes. For nearly a decade, millions of Americans endured hunger, poverty, and displacement as the earth itself seemed to rebel. This is the story of the Dust Bowl, a man-made and natural disaster that revealed the fragility of human ambition, the resilience of families, and the urgent need for balance between nature and survival. Before the Dust Bowl, the Great Plains were celebrated as America's breadbasket. Stretching from Texas to the Dakotas, this vast region offered flat land and endless skies. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, settlers flocked here under the Homestead Act. They plowed millions of acres of grasslands, transforming prairie into farmland. Wheat, corn, and cattle thrived. During World War I, demand for wheat soared. Farmers expanded production, and many took out loans for new tractors and equipment. The land yielded riches. But beneath this prosperity lay a problem. The deep-rooted prairie grasses that had anchored the soil for centuries were gone. The land was vulnerable. In 1930, a severe drought began across the plains. Rain stopped falling and temperatures soared. Crops withered, leaving bare soil exposed. The timing could not have been worse. The nation was already crippled by the Great Depression. Falling crop prices left farmers desperate. Many plowed more land in hopes of salvaging a profit, unwittingly making the soil even weaker. When the winds came, they had nothing to hold back the dust. By 1931, the first great dust storms swept across the plains. Strong winds lifted the loose soil into the air, creating giant clouds that darkened the skies. Farmers watched in horror as their fields disappeared. Entire crops were lost in minutes. Dust seeped into homes, covering furniture, dishes, and even beds. Children wore wet rags over their faces to breathe. Mothers stuffed cloth into cracks of doors and windows, but nothing could keep the dust out. It was just the beginning. On April 14, 1935, forever remembered as Black Sunday, the worst storm of the Dust Bowl hit. A massive black cloud, 200 miles wide and thousands of feet high, rolled across the plains. Witnesses said it looked like the end of the world. The sky turned pitch black. People couldn't see their hands in front of their faces. Cars stalled, animals panicked, and families huddled inside as dust poured through every crevice. By the time the storm ended, 300 million tons of topsoil had been blown away. Black Sunday became a symbol of the Dust Bowl's devastation. The Dust Bowl turned lives upside down. Crops failed year after year. Cattle starved or suffocated in the dust. Families lost farms to foreclosure. Many packed their belongings and headed west, hoping for a fresh start in California. These Okies, as they were called, regardless of whether they were from Oklahoma, traveled by the thousands along Route 66. They dreamed of picking fruit in California's orchards, but reality was harsh. Work was scarce, wages were low, and locals often treated them with hostility. Life in the migrant camps was filled with hunger, sickness, and despair. The storms weren't just an inconvenience, they were deadly. Children and the elderly suffered from dust pneumonia, a lung disease caused by inhaling fine particles. Hospitals overflowed and thousands died. The dust also contaminated food and water supplies. Families strained drinking water through cloth to remove dirt. Meals were often gritty with soil. Every day was a battle for survival. At first, many politicians ignored the crisis. But by the mid-1930s, President Franklin D. Roosevelt launched New Deal programs to help. The Soil Conservation Service was created in 1935. Experts taught farmers new techniques: crop rotation, contour plowing, and planting windbreaks of trees. The government also purchased millions of acres of damaged land, taking it out of production to allow it to recover. Relief programs provided jobs, food, and shelter for struggling families. While not a complete solution, These efforts began to slow the disaster. Despite the suffering, stories of resilience and community emerged. Neighbors helped one another rebuild homes buried in dust. Women sewed clothes from flour sacks. Children went to school wearing homemade dust masks. Some families stayed on their land, determined to endure. Others carried their traditions and culture with them as they migrated, reshaping communities across the West. Their grit became part of the American spirit. By 1939, the rains finally returned. Coupled with improved farming practices, the storms began to subside. But the damage had been done. The Dust Bowl destroyed millions of acres, displaced hundreds of thousands of families, and left deep scars on the land and the people who lived there. The Great Plains slowly recovered, but life would never be the same. The Dust Bowl inspired art, music, and literature that captured the suffering and endurance of the era. Photographer Dorothea Lange's haunting images of migrant families brought national attention to their plight. Writer John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath told the story of an Oklahoma family forced to leave their farm, giving voice to millions. Folk singer Woody Guthrie wrote ballads about the storms, calling them the dusty old dust. These works ensured that the Dust Bowl would never be forgotten. The Dust Bowl was both a natural and man-made disaster. Drought was unavoidable, but over-farming and poor land management made it catastrophic. It taught America the importance of respecting the environment. It showed that human ambition must work with nature, not against it. Today, conservation practices continue to protect the soil, and the memory of the Dust Bowl serves as a warning of what happens when we push the land too far. The Dust Bowl was more than just dust and storms. It was hunger, migration, resilience, and survival. It tested the strength of families, the compassion of communities, and the ability of a nation to respond to crisis. From the black skies of Black Sunday to the hope of returning rains, the Dust Bowl remains one of the most powerful stories in American history. It is a reminder that nature is both generous and unforgiving, and that human determination, even in the darkest storm, can endure.